Hey, second-hand prices of the plastic Samsungs are going to plummet even faster now. There are more metal Galaxies in town. The Samsung Galaxy Alpha has acquired some sister devices, the Galaxy A3 and A5, both mid-range devices with the same metal frame. The A3 has a 4.5-inch QHD, that's lowercase q, screen and weighs only 110 grams, a 1.2 GHz processor, 1 gig of RAM and an 8-megapixel snapper on the back. Meanwhile, the Galaxy A5 has a 5-inch 720p display, is only 6.7mm thick and has 2 gig of RAM, though with the same quad-core 1.2 GHz engine. The camera is upgraded to 13 megapixels. Both phones ship with Android 4.4, of course. Also launching two smartphones is Oppo with the N3 and R5. The N3 follows the N1 that I reviewed a year ago, with a rotating upgraded camera at the top. Even better, this time the camera is motorized and comes with a Bluetooth remote control. Now I'm getting ideas. The N3 is built in aluminium, uses a Snapdragon 801, 2.3 GHz CPU, 2 gig of RAM and a 5.5-inch 1080p screen. 32 gig of storage plus microSD plus 4G means this is something of a flagship in every way. The R5 is pitched around thinness, a concept I struggle with, as you know, being just 4.85mm thick apart from the camera hump. It's also got a 1080p screen, 5.2 inches in size, with a more standard 13-megapixel rear camera, only 16 gig of storage on board and no card slot or headphone jack due to the thickness or lack of it. Oh, just shoot me now. Let me start out by saying that the Apple iPhone 6 Plus is the standout iDevice from the last 6 years. It's that good. Starting in 2007, we had a succession of relatively small-screened iPhones, then a range of iPads going from 10 inches down to 7 inches, and now there's something in between that really can do both jobs for many people, and with not that many compromises in terms of components or functions. If you can afford it, of course, the iPhone 6 Plus starts at $620 for the space-challenged 16 gig version, a 10 gig available out of the box and no expansion, remember, and goes up to a whopping £790 free for the 128 gigabyte version. Most buyers will go for the £700 64 gig version here, as I did, which makes the most sense. Of course, canny buyers will say that you can get two Galaxy Note 3s of similar size and spec for the same money, which is crazy. But you're paying here because you want an iPhone. You want the apps, you want the ecosystem, you want the Apple logo, you want the reliability, the prestige, the aluminium unibody build, the near lifetime after-sales support, and so on. So let's leave aside the question of value for money. In the hand, I'd expected the 6 Plus to be too big, but despite its height, a massive 16 centimeters, the width is only 78 millimeters, and I can even just about get my thumb and middle fingers to touch, meaning a more secure grip. And the size is also why Apple went with all these rounded edges to make the size increase comfortable. You'll probably want a bumper case, mind you. The edges are surprisingly smooth and it's easy to drop. Also because the aluminium is naturally prone to scratches. Hey, it's a soft metal and this is normal. Did I try bending the 6 Plus? Yes, but only very briefly. It's clear that this will deform if you apply enough force, but in my mind, if you've just spent the best part of £1,000 on a phone, treat it with kid gloves. Don't just shove it into a jeans pocket and head down the pub. What's interesting here is that Apple's normal iPhone 6 is missing quite a lot of what makes the Plus special. Yes, I know the 6 is smaller, but here's what you get with the still very manageable iPhone 6 Plus. A much larger 2900 mAh battery. Optical image stabilization in the camera, of which more later. The entire UI and all built-in applications work in landscape mode if required, meaning that you can use the Plus as a small tablet and don't have to keep rotating it as you would on other iPhones. Along the same lines, applications often come up now in two-pane tablet fashion, as seen here. There's a higher resolution 1080p display. That's quite a list of benefits, plus the physically larger 5.5-inch screen is clearer for media, web, and those with older eyes like me. Brightness, contrast, and colour are great in most light conditions, as you'd expect from Apple. A Nokia-style 2.5D glass that curves away at all edges with an oleophobic coating means that the touchscreen is a pleasure to swipe on. Apple has at last bowed to peer pressure and put in a side-mounted power button for easier access, though it's a trifle hard to find. I'd have preferred something more prominent. Happily, you won't need it most of the time, as you can just press and lightly hold the Touch ID Home button to activate the screen and authenticate and unlock all in one go. It's a terrific system and leagues better than Samsung's swipe sensor on the latest S series and Galaxy Notes. The home button is also used for accessibility. Should you be a little bit deranged and trying to use the 6 Plus entirely one-handed, on the move there's a handy little double tap feature that scrolls the interface downwards so that you can tap on something that would normally be out of reach at the top of the UI. This works and is novel, but usability does rather depend on which app you're in. At the bottom is a single mono speaker that's decently loud. Here's a demo. But it's not that high fidelity by HTC standards. It's also quite easy to block by accident when holding the 6 Plus in landscape mode. Watching media. On the back, the camera stands proud, raised from the iPhone 6's body, which is odd for an iPhone, and why on earth Apple couldn't have made this 8mm thick rather than 7, obviating the need to have the sharp-edged camera stand proud and allowing space for, say, a 4000 mAh battery, meaning no battery worries ever escapes me. The camera glass is sapphire and very tough, plus it's protected by a thin rim of metal, but it's still an oddity for an iPhone. In terms of capture quality, the 1/3 of an inch optical format sensor does a good enough job in most light conditions, helped by OIS for this model, though results are still some way short of my beloved Lumia 1020, as you might expect, with a sensor that's 4 times smaller than the Nokia. Apple's algorithms, though, have produced better results than Sony's, for example, on the Xperia Z3's larger sensor, showing that you need both physics and intelligence for good imaging. Colour balance is excellent, the flash works superbly for static subjects, macros are good, and the only real weakness is the usual LED flash issue for people with moving faces and limbs indoors. Focusing is supposed to be faster than on other devices thanks to phase detection autofocus, or focus pixels as Apple calls it, but I will still think up to a second or so in low light, so it's all relative, I guess. This was worst case. Video capture is stunning, helped by the OIS and with special high frame rate slow motion possibilities as seen here, a testament to the processor power inside. Inside, the iPhone 6 Plus is Apple's fastest ever chip. 1.4 GHz doesn't sound like much by Android standards, but the 64-bit chip inside includes over 2 billion transistors. Just think about that for a moment. I experienced no lag or slowdown on the biggest sites and most power-hungry applications and games, despite the fact that Apple's latest iPhones still only have 1 gig of RAM, while the Android competition are starting to include 3 gig now. Maybe it's just Android that's getting greedy. Given the optional full landscape UI in the iPhone 6 Plus, I was very pleased to see that iOS works very well with Bluetooth keyboards now. With my beloved here backlit Freedom keyboard, I was able to type, adjust volume and brightness, control media and more. Although I didn't load up Apple's optional Pages software, I can see that a real road warrior might even be able to make do just with this phone, keyboard and a simple stand or prop of some kind. Much publicised, in the USA at least, has been the iPhone 6 series use of NFC, near-field communications. It's present, but only for Apple Pay terminals and only in the States so far. Obviously, Apple Pay will roll out to other markets soon enough, and hopefully Apple will also, in 2016 or wherever, open up the NFC radio for other uses, the sort of accessory pairings and lookups that the rest of us have been doing since 2011. All of which adds up to a very positive experience. This is a premium device that can do everything you need it to, from business to productivity to media to gaming to browsing, all quick and pleasant and with market-leading choice of applications at every stage. So why on earth am I feeling unhappy when walking down the street with the Apple iPhone 6 Plus? The slipperiness of the design is rectified with a case, but there's still an awareness that I'm holding £700 or so of high tech and that it could be lost or dropped or, more likely in most cities, stolen. Walking the mile from the city centre Apple store to my car, clutching the white logoed bag with my new purchase, I've never felt so vulnerable. Had I been prancing along with a Galaxy S4 or a bright yellow Windows phone, I doubt most smugglers would give me a second glance. But an eminently resellable iPhone 6 Plus, gulp. Am I being too paranoid? But if you can afford it and if you're happy with the physical form, then the iPhone 6 Plus is a great buy. It's not too big, no matter what people may tell you. It's certainly the better and more flexible of the two new iPhones, and will also mean that you can probably sell on your old iPad mini or other 7-inch tablet. This is a true jack of all trades smartphone and comes with my recommendation.